welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I hope your week is going well. I am back at it with another ingress video, and today we're going to talk all about Mars moving through the sign of Aries. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, make sure you click the bell button below, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and leave me a comment and let me know how you're feeling with this energy. Especially if you have Mars in Aries or maybe Mars in the first house, you may really resonate with some of the topics for today. So obviously this is kind of like big news because now we've made it to the end of April and we're finally gonna start feeling like the new year is moving forward. No more eclipse season, no more retrograde, no more of this kind of watery Mars business. Now Mars is being reborn in its own sign. So we're going to talk about that today, what it means for everybody. And if you guys stay tuned to the end, I will talk about how this is going to be impacting the 12 rising signs. I also discussed this on my May horoscope. So if you guys haven't already seen them, definitely check them out. So Mars will be moving through this sign from April 30th today through June the 8th, 2024. Mars generally spends around about 5-6 weeks in a sign given the particular kind of retrogrades and other things happening. And this happens every 2 years that we see Mars kind of go through this sign. So it's nothing new, but Mars moving through Aries, the first sign of the zodiac is Mars being reborn. So when we look at Mars moving through this sign, you know, we think about what Mars represents. In astrology, Mars behaves basically with a sense of like heightened intensity and assertiveness. So moving through the sign that it's associated with, it's going to be feeling like it can express that energy more freely. And so I do think that there is going to be a sense of energy feeling more amplified. You guys are going to feel this over the next few weeks. Primarily, I think it's really connected to the North Node. So with the North Node being in Aries, we're always looking at what's going on with Mars. So Mars moving into this sign and that close conjunction is going to be a real pivotal turning point towards taking action collectively for our future. But watch for the fiery kind of pioneering and impulsive qualities that will start kind of coming up collectively with this ingress. I think Aries is all about leading individuals and learning how to be more self-reliant and assertive. So we can also feel this energy where we're kind of a little bit more linear when it comes to achieving our goals. We're feeling more active. We're feeling more passionate about going after things. We may notice like a really strong drive for success or independence. Yes, there is going to be a little bit of like that fighting spirit, but as long as we have an outlet for this transit, generally it's pretty positive. I'm really looking forward to the confidence that's going to come with this transit, the opportunity for adventure, to be able to, initiate new things because this is the first sign of the zodiac, and also to be mindful, right? We want to be mindful of our actions because there can be a sense of becoming a little temperamental or impatient with this particular transit. Now, the other thing that I was thinking about is just how this is going to be inspiring us to want to be a leader of some kind. Aries is about wanting to be the first, right? It's cardinal fire. So it's kind of striking the match and wanting to kind of initiate something brand new. So for many of us, it's going to be about really walking the walk and talking the talk. So you may feel inspired to lead others or to initiate something or to kind of like be the first in some way. So I think it's going to be really good for all of us taking a little bit more action and really focusing on our ambition and our desire. Now, this is going to be the most significant for people who are ruled by Mars. So I practice Western tropical astrology. I'm not a Vedic astrologer. So this is where it pays to know your rising sign. If you guys do not know that, you can check out a birth chart calculator online for free. Check out like astro.com. There's tons of ways that you guys can find that out. Look for the 9 o'clock hour in your chart. This is your rising sign or your ascendant. This is determined by the time of your birth as well. All right, so Aries risings, obviously, because Mars is your chart ruler. This is important for you. And my Scorpio risings, because you are also ruled by Mars. However, if you have a North Node in Aries, if you have a Mars in Aries, if you have any personal planets in the sign of Aries, you're going to be feeling this as well. I think it's interesting that this is happening after the solar eclipse, where all of us have been kind of initiating something new within ourselves. after the Mercury retrograde, where we've been healing and, miscommunicating and kind of like trying to figure out, how to be more assertive. What do we need? And so now here comes Mars to kind of move through those same degrees and really help us kind of like take initiative. So like I said, this happens once every 2 years. It is a very powerful dynamic, especially considering that it's going to be amplified because it's coming into conjunction with the North Node. Now, it's going to mean different things for different people. So you're not just going to want to look at where Aries is in your chart. Yes, you may see more action in that area of your life, but you also want to think about the Scorpio area of your chart as well, because, Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio. So there's something kind of going on with both of these two houses that's going to be influencing how this is going to ultimately play out. So watch for that at the end of the video. I do feel like it's cool because we only see the North Node move through Aries like every 18, 19 years. And the last time we had this transit as well, there was a Mars transit in Aries. So, we can go back and look at that if you guys want. I think I talked about that in a recent video, that unfortunately it had some kind of like more challenging effects. But let's look at that. The last time Mars was in Aries with the North Node, I want to say it was the summer of, here we go, 2005. Okay. So Mars left Pisces, goes into Aries. It looks like this was starting right around mid-June of 2005. And then Mars came into conjunction with the North Node, and that was happening right around 18 degrees. We had eclipses that same year that were the same eclipse cycles that we're in now. I think we had an eclipse that was around the 17, 18, 19 degrees points within within Aries and Libra. Obviously different astrology. It was flavored a little bit differently because we had, Jupiter in Libra and Mars kind of meeting with the North Node. But you may want to be thinking about what was happening in your life in 2005 in the summer, where you were taking some kind of conscious action, kind of moving forward with something, being more bold, being more independent. The North Node is futuristic, right? It is undefined. It does represent where we're going for some kind of collective growth and development. But it can also amplify the planetary energies of Mars. So we can see being too hot to handle, too confrontational. There can be things getting kicked up revolving around war and unfortunately attacks, and sometimes even like, terrorist type situations. Certainly I was learning about what happened the last time this took place, where we had an eclipse in the spring of 2025. And I noticed that there were a series of like events and things that happened over the world, primarily one that I think was taking place in the UK. But yeah, think about what was happening back then. That's more kind of in a general level. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to manifest that way for you in particular. But it is a time to really pay attention to what's going on in the area of Aries in your chart, because it's going to give you a little bit more motivation, a little bit more pep in your step to initiate something brand new. Now, these moments are like seeding moments, right? So it does kind of represent something that is being initiated. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to see the full effects of it, I think, until closer, down the line. So when we think about Mars, it can be about something that you are trying to fix. Mars is about trying to fix solutions. It can be about something that you're trying to build. It can be about something you're trying to transform. It can be about something you're trying to launch. So these are the ways that this might manifest for you. I do feel like, other than increased assertiveness and energy and ambition, we might also see heightened activity levels physically as well as mentally. So across various aspects of life, including relationships, personal endeavors, and social interactions. Now, I'll take you guys through the transits of Mars. We'll take a look at what the trek looks like. To be honest with you, there's not too many aspects that I'm going to be focusing on, but the ones that are happening, in my opinion, are pretty potent. So let's talk a little bit also about the theme of Mars and its domicile. So if you guys caught my Venus in Taurus video, I talked about how Venus is moving through Taurus. She's very comfortable there. It's about pleasure and indulgence. We've got the South Node ruler kind of in a sign where she's very comfortable and able to express that kind of Venusian energy beautifully. So by the same standard, Mars moving into Aries is doing the same thing. So it's going to be expressing that masculine, assertive energy, that combative energy that wants to fight, wants to protect, wants to be the hero, right? So Mars is going to be doing the same thing. When Mars is moving through the sign, like I said, it's going to amplify things. And then you throw that into the mix with like the North Node in Aries, and we're going to be feeling like we are kind of pumping ourselves up about something in regards to the future. So when I think about this particular transit, you know, I think of what can be considered aggressive, assertive, energetic, courageous, impulsive. That's a big one with the North Node, I think, in Aries. And also this recent retrograde, it's like, where are we taking chances and taking risks and being pioneering, or where are we being impulsive and impatient, or where are we being self-centered? Sometimes that can kind of come up. Obviously a fine line between these things, but it can also be about being independent and what we're doing independently outside of other people, where we are learning how to be more self-reliant, focusing on our own goals and our own direction. It's dynamic, competitive, adventurous. The fire signs are known for being adventurous, especially Aries, because they are wanting to go and kind of trailblaze and kind of create their own path. Watch for being more quick-tempered, self-focused, direct, restless, but I think above all, fearless. Mars in Aries is fearless. They have no problem kind of going their own way. Now, I think one of the best ways to be working with this energy is going to be about really looking at, okay, Mars is in its home sign. How can we burn off some steam, right? So I think a lot of this is going to be about physical activity. So it can be really helpful engaging in vigorous physical activity during this particular transit. I think of things like martial arts or running, competitive sports. This can really help channel Mars's energy in a productive manner. This is, you know, Mars moving through the sign. That can be about athletics and physical fitness, and it can be about working with trainers or anything pertaining to self-defense or weapons, right? So it can be used in a positive manner where maybe you're like, hey, you know, I'd like to learn how to go hunting, or I'd like to learn how to, you know, work with a bow and arrow, or I'd like to take a martial arts class. That's what Mars loves to do. And especially with Mars's recent kind of conjunction to Saturn, there's been this sense of being like, where am I needing to get out of my own way? Where am I actually holding myself back? Where have I had lower energy levels, or I haven't been sleeping well? Where have I been unsure about what direction I'm supposed to be going in? So now that Mars is coming into its home sign, I kind of feel like it's really up for some kind of challenge, and it might be about pushing ourselves in a new direction, even though we don't know where it's going to go. The key word with Aries is initiative, right? So having Mars in this particular sign, I think, is really helping us start new projects or lead existing ones. Mars in Aries supports a bold and kind of, and I think like a bold decision-making process. It's about being decisive, and it makes it a great time to be pursuing your goals with enthusiasm. Aries is really good at starting things, not so great at finishing things. So one thing I would say is focus more about where you're taking the initiative to just start the beginning process, the first steps. You don't have to figure it out yet. You don't have to have it organized. You don't have to know how it's going to kind of like complete in the end. We'll kind of leave that up to like Virgo and Capricorn and like Aquarius. But this is just more about beginning. So don't get overwhelmed with the end goal. Be more focused on, okay, how am I taking small steps every day to be able to kind of initiate some kind of new beginning or new change? I encourage you guys, while Mercury is still in Aries with this transit at the beginning, to really, I think, focus on courageous conversations. Use direct and assertive nature of Mars and Aries to have important conversations or address conflicts head on. Just ensure your approach is respectful and not aggressive. Very quickly with Aries energy, we can become so self-consumed, very fixated on our thoughts, our wants, our desires, and it can make it more challenging with that South Node in Libra to hear other people out. Now, naturally with the South Node in Libra, we're breaking away from old outdated patterns in relationships. We're learning not to be indecisive or people-pleasing. We're moving away from relationships where we're codependent. We're listening to our own inner voice. So it's not a bad thing to speak up or, kind of say what's on your mind, or, don't hesitate to initiate conversations that can be confrontational or combative, as long as you're working through some of these issues. Inspire other people and talk about what changes you're making on an individual level. It may help other people actually kind of turn over a new leaf and do something similar. Great time to focus on self-improvement, because I think that Mars needs something to work on, right? And Mercury wants to kind of take something apart and kind of put it back together. Chiron there wants to heal something. So I think really the goal is using the motivation and drive of Mars and Aries to work on yourself. And whether this is through learning new skills, improving your physical health, or setting new ambitious goals for yourself, working on yourself every day and being focused on being the best version of yourself on a regular basis. You know, Aries is the first thing you do in the morning, is the best way to kind of navigate this transit. As we start to see Mars come into conjunction with the North Node, we're going to realize that this is necessary for us to be able to step into this new version of ourselves. It is necessary for us to have routines, get up earlier in the morning, you know, incorporate some kind of physical activity. And that likely it'll also make us more capable, more physically capable, mentally stronger, physically stronger, more independent, you know, the list goes on. Independence. So embracing independence and taking the initiative in your own life, using this transit to assert your needs and desires, and not being afraid to pursue your own path. Think of things like, you know, situations where, you know, you get invited to something and you tell your partner, hey, do you want to go to this party? And they're like, I can't, I'm working. Go to the party, right? Go on your own. Maybe you want to travel somewhere, but, you know, you've got a friend that can't take time off. Go anyway. You want to get into, you know, joining a new group or meeting new friends, and you're hesitant to go and do this without somebody who's familiar. Go anyway. Challenge yourself, get outside of your comfort zone, do something every day that scares you, even if this is small things. That willingness to work with the bravery of Mars and the unknown of the North Node can be really positive for actually like going out there and learning how to be independent and do things by yourself. Be mindful of impulsivity, because it is out there. You're going to feel it. There is going to be days where you're going to be like, I'm going to snap. There's going to be days where you're going to be like, I am cutting this, or I'm starting this. And that can be good and exciting, but we want to be mindful that Aries brings this sense of urgency. And so we want to try to avoid acting impulsively. Take time to think things through, okay? When this transit is beginning, Mercury is still in Aries. Eventually, it will kind of move into Taurus in the next week or so. And I think that's going to be really helpful, because what it's going to do is it's going to open things up and have us say, hold on, let's slow down and really think about, you know, the repercussions of this and like physically how this is going to impact me. So you've got Mercury kind of supporting you throughout this process. But make sure you take time to consider the consequences of your actions, because Mars is really quick to shoot from the hip, right? And especially in Aries, and to act first, think later. So be mindful that these impulses can be so strong to start something new, initiate, be independent, cut things off, whatever, that actions have consequences. Manage your anger. Mars and Aries can sometimes bring up a quick temper, and practicing patience and mindfulness to avoid unnecessary conflicts and ensure your actions are constructive. Fire signs like to burn it down. Okay, God bless you guys. You guys keep me entertained. I definitely feel like there can be this sense of, well, if you're not, you know, willing to join me, or if you're not going to let me, like, get out of my way. That can come up with all of this Aries energy. But I think that really what this is about is like learning to acknowledge our anger, and the fact that, you know, anger is an emotion. It does come up. But at the end of the day, everything is kind of a derivative of either love or fear. So if you're angry, it's about finding out, or kind of finding the root cause. Why am I angry? Am I angry because I'm afraid of change? Am I angry because I'm like resistant to change? Am I angry because I'm disappointed, and that disappointment is rooted in hurt, and, you know, oh, I got to deal with some of those emotions. Anger can be coming up as a way to kind of show you, like, okay, it's like a barometer, you know, like where are you off track? And if you're angry because you're making sacrifices or showing up for other people, or not feeling like you're being met halfway, or maybe you're angry at yourself for not initiating some kind of change, you want to use that as fuel and motivation to say, you know what, now I'm gonna actually start something new. So we want to make lemonade with this transit. Anger leads to health problems. We have inflammation. We have all kinds of other issues with the, you know, various organs in your body. We can see stuff that can kind of become inflamed or become sickly. You know, Mars is the planet that deals with not just war, but it's also about male reproductive organs. It can also be about things connecting to male hormones, stuff relating to the head, and whether that's, you know, issues with the head, the face, the sinuses, or mental issues. Certainly Mercury Still in Aries, conjunct Chiron is like where, you know, we're not properly dealing with anger, how that can have an impact on us mentally and how we communicate with other people and also with ourselves. I do think that this is a time to really think about, are we utilizing our anger and working through it in a positive manner? And if we are harboring anger or frustration, how is that actually kind of hurting us? And then finally, embrace change, because Aries is a sign of new beginnings and change. So this transit is about embracing change in your life and pursuing new opportunities with confidence. You know, recently Mars made that conjunction to Saturn during the eclipse season, and we kind of felt like there were like these invisible walls that were kind of holding us back. At least that's how I have felt. And then once we got over that hurdle with the eclipses, then, you know, Mars has been in conjunction to Neptune. It's actually kind of aligning as I'm filming this video. The energy is very weird right now. There is the sense of like, okay, something was holding us back, but, you know, Mars, Neptune, is it getting me off track now? Am I confused? Am I giving up? Am I throwing in the towel or waving the white flag? Is there a sense of losing sight of why we're fighting? You know, are some people giving up? Are you giving up too soon? Are you cutting, you know, or selling yourself short? These things can be happening with the Mars-Neptune conjunction that's been kind of brewing these last couple of days. And Pisces is a sign about completion, right? It's the last sign of the zodiac, ruled by Jupiter traditionally, which is about faith and religion and, you know, the collective. So collectively, yeah, we're all a little tired. That's 100% accurate. I do think that you're going to notice a pretty substantial shift, though, with this ingress today, where it's like, yeah, I haven't been as optimistic or, you know, as faithful, or maybe I've been, you know, feeling like I just want to kind of, you know, crawl into bed. And now all of a sudden there's more motivation and more optimism about moving forward. Embrace change, basically, is what I'm getting at. You know, do something different with this transit, because the North Node and Mars coming together is saying some of the initiative that you take throughout this transit over the next several weeks, some of the things that you start are going to be really big for you, like long term, I think over the better part of like the next 18 or 19 years. And so Mars being in its home sign is like super helpful throughout this transit. For me, I think, like I said, very few aspects in terms of Mars's trek that we're going to look at today. But in my mind, I think probably the most potent aspect that we're going to see will be that Mars North Node conjunction. So when Mars comes into conjunction with the North Node, okay, so we will see this intermittently throughout different signs. That's not unusual. But it is unusual when it's in Aries, because it doesn't happen as frequently. This is very, very, very important, guys. It's very important. So Mars meeting with the North Node is about purposeful action, right? Because Mars represents action, energy, and assertiveness. And that North Node symbolizes the path of growth and evolution. Now, this is on a personal level because Aries is the individual, but this is also on the collective level because, you know, the North Node, we're all kind of impacted by transits with the North Node right now. So I do see this as a time where these two coming together is going to be, for all of us, this really strong drive to take action in alignment with our life's purpose or the direction in which we are meant to go. So we'll look at the Sabian symbol. We'll talk about that when I kind of go through that. But just keep in mind, it's like whatever is showing up when planets conjunct the North Node is kind of saying, hey, we're meant to be embodying this kind of planetary archetype. It's up to you to decide, are you going to play the role of being the hero? Are you going to be the athlete? Are you going to be the star? Are you going to be the entrepreneur? Or are you going to be like the Hellraiser who's like running around and fighting with people and being combative and confrontational and aggressive? It's all what you're going to make of that particular transit. Now, the North Node conjunction is also about fated encounters. So when we see the North Node in astrology, it can talk about events that are meant to push us towards our destiny. So Mars can bring a sense of urgency and intensity to these encounters, making them more impactful or transformative. So when I think about Aries, it's like a lot of people are going to be like, I feel this urge to stand up and fight, in whichever way that manifests. Some people will feel that it's about fighting for their independence. Other people are going to feel like it's literally about learning how to box or learning about self-defense, or you're wanting to learn about handling self-defense weapons. For other people, it's going to be this, I think, beating the war drum of, yeah, go to war, yeah, fight, kill, you know, and that's the lower octave of Mars. So we want to be mindful of that. But I think for most of us, it's going to materialize as having that moment where we're like, you know what, I'm not just going to take it sitting down. You know, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to kind of stand up for myself, or I'm going to push back, or I'm going to defend myself in some way. And it's about taking brave, you know, steps forward and being very courageous. I do think that Mars also has like this sexual connotation because it has connections to, you know, masculinity. It has connections to Scorpio. So it might be a time where we just notice that we are also feeling more passionate. We are more willing to go after what we want, like a dog with a bone. Very much Mars in the North Node is like, I want it, I gotta have it, you know, I'll do anything for it. And that could be sex, food, money, you know, resources. It could be just our own personal goals that we're just unwilling and like kind of like relentless when it comes to going after that. Now, this can also be a time where we're really channeling this courage and this boldness in a very different way. And I think the North Node is getting outside of your comfort zone. If you look at your own North Node in your natal chart, the house that it's placed in probably represents either A, something that you're like, that is terrifying, I don't know how to do that, like that's out of my wheelhouse. And part of that is by design because that's why you came here. You came here how to learn how to integrate that particular house and sign. For other people, the North Node can represent this thing that we would give anything for, like at any cost, and we just really want it so badly. So it can manifest as one of those kind of two for you. But I do think that this particular energy is going to be about pursuing our goals with passion and determination. And where taking risks can actually really pay off, especially if these risks are in alignment with our true calling. So like I said, collectively as well as personally, we're going to be seeing this playing out in a way where everybody is just like hyper laser focused on, you know, what is my goal? What am I going towards? How do I get from point A to point B the quickest way possible? Yes, there can be conflict and challenges, right? I mean, I think any planet in Aries is going to bring that. But if you have to pick one planet in Aries that's going to perform very well, in my mind, it would be Mars, because I feel like this is, you know, where, I mean, Mars is playing with home field advantage versus other placements like Venus, where there's going to be conflicts in relationships, and Mercury, which can sometimes be too self-focused and narrow-minded, Saturn, which can be very self-limiting, Neptune, which gets confused, like, you know, maybe Jupiter. Jupiter's a good placement for Aries as well, but Mars, my pick would be Mars. You know, I think that this is about really finding that this transit is going to provide us with a wake-up call, that we need to make changes in our life, and that some things need to be confronted head on, and we need to take initiative and make things happen, and nobody's going to make it happen but ourselves. And then I think for some of us, it's a rude awakening. That's like, hey, so-and-so is not going to come and save us, or we're not going to get bailed out. It doesn't matter who the president is or what billionaire is trying to save the world. Like, screw all of that. You have to be partially involved and responsible for being the hero in your own story. And when enough people start doing that and taking that initiative, we're going to see that it's going to create a wave effect of people who are not going to be willing to just take it sitting down. So do something with this energy, even though there can be conflict, even though there can be challenges and difficult conversations and, you know, not always seeing eye to eye with people. This meeting with the North Node is helping us undo a lot of the collective karma of being too passive or people pleasing in relationships. Yes, relationships will change when you get more so into alignment with yourself. And some of you guys might realize that the healthiest thing it may be to go your own way. And that doesn't mean that you don't stay in relationships or partnerships, but you might be saying, you know what, I'm actually going to do some things on my own, or, you know, I'm going and having my own morning routine, or I'm taking a day once a week for me. And it's not that I don't love you or want to be with you, but this is what I need right now. And I think a lot of people are going to be realizing that their needs are becoming more and more obvious to them throughout this transit. Watch for that surge in energy. Like I said, I think it can be really productive for taking initiative and making things happen, but also major strides when it comes to physical health and fitness. And above all, focus on the future. I love so much about, and I've said this before, but when I think of like Aries energy, I think of like Ram Dass's lecture, like be here now, you know, so much Aries, like, you know, kind of connection to that. That's like, don't focus on the past and where you've been. That's very kind of Cancer, kind of moon, lunar energy, reminiscing, getting stuck, thinking about the past. And then also the future, which if we're future tripping, oh my God, it's the end of the world. What are we going to do? There's no point. We should just give up. It's too hard. You know, the world's going to hell in the handbasket. It's not allowing us to make decisions in the right now. And I think Pluto recently being in Aquarius has been future tripping for a lot of people. And when you start to hear that these things are kind of going south in the world and we start to just get consumed by it, it becomes ingrained so much in our culture, in how we communicate and, talk about the future and, deal with one another. It's almost like this perpetual like doomsday cult, that we're kind of like living in. So you want to watch for that. You want to be more focused on creating the future right now. If you want to see a different future, it's okay, what are you doing about it right now? What actions are you personally taking? Don't get lost in what other people are doing. Don't be patrolling other people. That's where you're not really making the most of this energy. It's very self-focused. So think about the future, right? I'm not going to say obsess about it, but focus on creating the future right now. Now, the future is going to come up because of the North Node. So it's about, the steps that we're taking personally towards, achieving that destiny. You're going to feel the forward momentum. It's encouraging you to focus on your long-term goals, but it's also trying to get you thinking about what you can initiate, what small steps you can take to make those future things possible. All right, so let's take a look at the transits. Like I said, I can't really talk about what is beginning before I talk about what's been ending. And so as you guys are watching this, Mars is now moving into Aries, but I'm filming this with Mars conjunct Neptune. Not some great energy, kiddos. Definitely the last degrees of energy, the last degrees of Pisces feels like it's like this meltdown disco circus situation, where it's like, oh my God, reality is like, it's dissolving, like everything that we thought was like real is not real, or the things that we were worried about, or the limitations that were holding us back, or what we were afraid of. It's all a facade. And that's maybe me being a little optimistic, but that's how I'm trying to look at it. That's like a new reality is getting ready to be born. And as we see Saturn and Neptune leave Pisces in this next year in 2025 and 2026 and come into Aries, a new reality for everybody on an individual level is about to kind of be set forth. And I think it's going to be, in a lot of ways, about our faith. I think it's going to be about our relationship to our bodies. Neptune is about temples. I think we're going to realize that we are divine beings, that we are connected to source, that we are capable, that we need to be thinking, treating our bodies like temples. We need to be really looking at that connection that we have to the collective, and be kind of leading in a very different way. But before that happens, right, Mars and obviously Saturn and Neptune, they're all kind of dancing at these late degrees, which is going to represent something ending. So if you feel like you've been like kind of rolling in the deep the last week or so with your feelings and your emotions, and you've been feeling like giving up, it makes sense. But now is where Mars is being reborn. So reflect on like maybe since the beginning of April, like where have you been holding back? Where have you been limited? Where have you kind of maybe felt like you've maybe strayed a little bit from your faith or your practice? And now that Mars is moving into Aries today on the 30th, things are going to begin to change. 0 degrees of Aries is a potent degree, not because it's the first degree of the zodiac, okay? So it's literally striking the match, making it possible for everything else to then follow. Mars is about life. Fire signs are about life, but Mars is that beginning, right? That first breath, like the battle cry, that is Mars. And I think about the 0 degrees of the cardinal points. Okay, so these are the season points, which a lot of, tropical, like Western astrology is based off of. We look at the solstices and the equinoxes as those corner turning points throughout our year where the energy changes. We see changes in the season. We see changes also with what's going on with the themes in the world. But the cardinal, the 0 cardinal axis, 0, 0, 0, 0. When planets cross that axis, we generally see something pretty significant happening in the world. So we might be seeing something developing just with that Mars ingress. Next year, in the new year, the North Node will hit this degree. We will also see Saturn hit this degree next year. We will see Neptune hit this degree next year. We will see Venus retrograde over this degree in the spring. We will see Mercury retrograde over this degree in the spring. Make no mistake, there is a new world coming. There is a new reality coming. And it's going to be based off of who builds it. And so this is the first kind of turning point with Mars showing up, where you're going to see some people get pissed off enough, like aggravated enough, pumped up enough, that they are going to start saying, no, we are going to be building this new future. And so it's kind of, it's this battle cry. And it's asking people to kind of wake up and say, okay, are you upset enough about what's going on? What are you going to do about it? So you may start to see this just as early as the Mars ingress in this particular degree. Things happen here. I think it was like we saw some like nuclear situation happen when Uranus hit that degree years ago, when Uranus went into Aries, and that's when we had some kind of nuclear thing. I think it was somewhere in Asia. But I would watch, because something may happen just with that transit. When we see Mars moving through Aries, especially in the early degrees, off the bat, I mean, even the first day, it's going to be sextiling the moon in Aquarius. So it's saying, oh, there's some kind of collective like breakdown. And then the sextile to Mars is like what individuals are doing, I try not to get too political, but this is something that is happening. It's all over the country. We are seeing protests all over the country. And we're involving mostly younger people, right? And so Aries can be about younger people. It can be people who are a part of a cause. Protests revolving around war is not surprising, or genocide, or any of these things that people are protesting, between what's going on with Israel, with Hamas, what's happening in Palestine. Certainly, you've got a lot of people that are incredibly angry because about this perpetual state of war, and the fact that everybody is constantly at odds. And Mars is about killing people. And so I'm not surprised by this. I'm also not surprised that we're seeing some brutal stuff going on in the protests, that people are being taken to the ground, and we're seeing all kinds of like cops and also like National Guard that's showing up to patrol and manhandle students on campus. I think that it's been interesting to watch in the midst of a Mercury retrograde, where you've got some camps that are really pushing for free speech and being able to say what they want, unless it's, advocating against war or, particular countries. That's interesting. I don't personally agree with it, but, I think that the Mercury retrograde and the solar eclipse was very much going to be about freedom of speech. And so when we start looking at the Mars ingress, it's going to be about people who are becoming increasingly more reactionary, impatient, violent. These things can unfortunately happen. Recently, with the conjunctions in Saturn and Neptune, it's been about a number of like attacks on Christianity. We've seen stabbings in sermons in churches. We've seen all kinds of cuts and limitations to what bombing we can see in other countries, primarily through apps like TikTok. So there are things that are happening behind the scenes right now that we don't see. And now people are going to start to kind of realize, like, okay, hold on a second, why is this happening? And people will become enraged. That Moon-Pluto conjunction happening today, the sextile to Mars, I think is definitely activating this in a big way. And collectively, people are kind of saying, like, this is not okay. This can be feeling like a full, totalitarian, like takedown or takeover, I guess I should say. And that Moon Pluto is about, an emotional meltdown, the masses and everybody kind of looking around being like, what's happening? And Pluto is getting ready to retrograde. So that's why things are also feeling rather intense. Anyway, as Mars continues to move through the early degrees of Aries, we will see a sextile to Pluto. So this energy is kind of brewing today until Mars hits about 2 degrees, and it will be forming the sextile to Pluto on the 3rd. Although I think you're going to be feeling this through about maybe like the 5th, especially as the moon moves into Aries here a couple days later. Sextiles are friendly energies. So, Pluto in Aquarius, change, transformation, revolution, things pertaining to groups and the masses, and everything from environmentalism to political changes, to all of these like super evil underlords that are gathering on panels and meetings and making decisions collectively about all of our futures, even though we did not elect them. That, in a way, I really feel like is showing us on an individual level with this sextile. Like, people are waking up and they're like, what the hell is going on? Like, why is this happening? In a way, I kind of laugh looking at this Pluto retrograde, because I'm like, wow, really interesting that a lot of groups and, you know, panels, or, you know, whether you want to talk about the WEFers or what's going on with NATO, or you want to talk about what's going on with like certain political affiliations and parties and stuff. A lot of people who are very evil and corrupt are really not playing things very, very intelligently. They're showing their cards. That's what's happening right now. And so I think with the sextile to Pluto, individuals are waking up and they're going, oh my God, these people are insane. Or like, there is an agenda to, you know, like depopulate people, or there is an agenda to take away your freedoms, your rights. And so perhaps maybe this is a positive aspect where people individually are going to start kind of waking up and they're going to start saying, no, that's not my future. You know, I'm not doing that. Feel empowered by Mars-Pluto sextiles. You know, this is supposed to be something that's like, if you feel so deeply and so passionately about something, look at the Aquarius area of your chart. You feel so deeply and passionately about making a change, a transformation for the future. And for some of you, it's like, this thing has to end and it's painful and it's scary, but this new thing is coming. Or I have to make this difficult decision, or, you know, I have to kind of make some kind of shift for the future. And this is what I'm going towards. This is meant to empower you. So it's a really great aspect right off the bat that I would encourage you guys to work with, because Mars and Pluto are some of the badasses of astrology. You know, Pluto is about death and rebirth. It is Hades, Lord of the underworld. But I think that this is about this kind of collective purging that's going on right now, this volcanic energy that is, you know, kind of swallowing the masses and making people kind of feel extremely resistant. I think you're going to see a lot more talk about like, no, like when tyranny, you know, was kind of going on in the world, the only real solution is disobedience. And I'm not saying that to encourage anything, but that's kind of like what Mars is doing. Mars is saying, nope, I'm going to go my own way. So I think you're going to hear more of that kind of like banter. On the 19th is when we see the Mars North Node conjunction. So I work with about a 2-degree orb, right? So right about the time that we get to here, so the 16th, even though it won't conjunct until the 19th, probably like the 16th through, I would say like the 21st, 22nd, this is going to be the most active. This is when you're going to be feeling this conjunction. Now the conjunction will be, like I said, here on the 19th at 14 degrees. If you have any personal planets, you know, let's say 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 degrees of Aries, this is a time to pay attention. Not only because the North Node is there, so it's kind of redirecting that energy towards being more Aries-like, but also because Mars is there and it's saying time to show up to your destiny, like put on your armor, go out into the world and initiate something and like be brave. But the Sabian symbol that we're going to look at is going to be 15 degrees. Which is right here. And I've read this for you guys before. I think I talked about it at one of my other videos, but I'll read it again. An Indian weaving a blanket. The keyword is diligence. So the theme is active participation. How appropriate with Mars in the North Node, active participation. The symbol speaks to the pride and personal fulfillment as achieved through creative self-expression. The image of an Indian weaving a blanket focuses on preservation of cultural values and traditions through art. At the same time, it depicts pleasure and satisfaction an individual can experience through meeting the needs of others. The symbol is similar to the meaning of the Eight of Pentacles in the Rider-Waite deck, that it expresses the pride of a skilled craftsman who is able to artistically express himself and his values through work in some tangible manner, and at the same time produce goods that meet a basic human that produce goods that meet a basic need in human society. The symbol, the weaver, is creating something that will provide protection from the elements as well as express his skills as an artist. The figure of the weaver also reflects a patience and concentration, such as it symbolizes the stability and peace of mind that an individual can achieve through being an active, contributing member to society, and it sustains him. In modern terms, this is called being a part of the process. At its highest, it represents self-fulfillment and enjoying through opportunities to use personal skills and talents and that benefit others. Watch for insecurity and willingness to live a dull and predictable life rather than face uncertainties of commitment. This accent is on ethnicity, pride, workmanship, creative self-expression. This is a good time for visiting museums, taking an art class, delving into history and traditions of different cultures, or working on your own personal project.
The greatest advantage lies in putting forth your talents to practical use for the benefit of others. Good for the conventional or traditional rather than the innovative or fancy. Fill a need and warm a heart. Guard against oversensitivity or letting your work become a convenient excuse for avoiding social relationships and involvement. Stepping stones is pride, conscientiousness, creativity, skill, artistry, craftsmanship, productivity, patience, concentration, work, and tradition. I think my favorite part of this is what it said, where it says active participation, individual participation. God, what a good time to have a skill or a trade, huh? Right? You gotta love all those college degrees that for many people are burying them in debt, and they may feel like they don't have any real world expertise. I mean, I hate to say that, but it's true. You're talking to somebody who's definitely been down that road. I think that when I think of Mars, I think of people who work blue collar jobs, right? Especially in Aries. I think of people who are in the military. I think of people who can fix things. I think of people who are, carpenters or people who are builders. I think of entrepreneurs. I think of coaches and trainers. This is extremely, extremely pioneering with Mars in the North Node. And it's happening at 14 degrees. So actively participating in creating something of value. It's like, screw Instagram selfies and, trips to Bali and, your, I hate to say it, but job as being like an entertainer. And I mean more online, not necessarily traditionally. Like, what skills do you have to offer the collective? What can you do that people need? Now is a really good time to be thinking about that. Because those who can fight, instruct, sew, build, and really teach people how to be more self-sustainable, those are the people who are going to be considered like a necessity in the future. Those are more of the people that we're going to need. I think about, survivalists. I think about hunters. I think about people who know about self-defense. These are going to be people who are going to be necessary in the future. Now, what's interesting is that this is at a 14 degrees, so that's a Taurus degree in astrology. Which deals with money, wallet, because of money, banks and bank employees, okay? I use that primarily, but also nature's forests, to grow, to raise. A lot of talk right now about self-custody and cryptocurrency, in particular, the most recent news and stuff that's been coming out with this FBI warning. Without going too much into it, I think this is connected to that. Because this is going to be about people being like, no, I possess what is mine. What is mine is mine. And whether that's your money, your food, your cryptocurrency, your property, your children, your right to defense, at least here in the United States. A lot of other countries are already kind of fucked in that department. But, you guys call Americans like crazy. And to some extent, yeah, we can be a little crazy. But there's a reason why that was written into our Constitution. It was for situations like what's going on right now. So I think you're going to see a lot of people saying, no, I'm not giving something up, and whether that's what you're used to eating. If you're like, hey, I want to have a steak every day, I could very much see that with Mars conjunct the North Node in Aries. I'm not going to stop eating meat, or I'm not going to give up my crypto keys, or I'm not going to, turn my money, over to the bank, or I'm no longer, buying or consuming this. It's going to be about those things, right? It's going to be about those things. And it will be interesting to see how this manifests. Because this will be almost like one of those conjunction moments that's going to play out over time. In a couple of years, we will see that there will be Saturn coming into this conjunction, closer to, it's going to be like, 2026, 2027. But I think that will be interesting. Sometimes we see Mars having kind of connections with people who are considered dangerous. So we may be hearing more rhetoric revolving around, well, it's dangerous to possess these things. You shouldn't be having these things. And I think we will hear some of that, because that North Node is talking about things that are futuristic and stuff that cannot necessarily be understood or kind of contained. So watch for that conjunction. That's going to be an interesting one. Then on the 25th, we're going to see Mars hitting 19 degrees. And so here is yet another reminder of the solar eclipse that we had in Aries around the beginning of April. I remember telling you guys, every time a planet hits this degree, you're going to be like, and there's another thing connected to whatever happened with the eclipse in early April. Solar eclipse planted a new seed, conjunct Chiron, it's wounding, you know, on an individual level, and anything in regards to fairness, balance, or what have you for individuals. And I think how a lot of that's kind of being taken away, or how we're hurting ourselves. So here's Mars coming into this conjunction. So you're going to feel it probably like the 24th, 25th, 26th, until Mars is getting closer to about 20 degrees. And even then, it's still going to meet with Chiron. So this is a time to really watch, because from about, you know, the 25th through the 30th of May, Mars is making some pretty interesting aspects. This is where I said in my May monthly video, you know, be careful with things that are hot, sharp, you know, be mindful of your head, put on a helmet. You know, if your kid's learning how to ride a bike, make sure they've got pads on. If you are deciding that, you know, you want to get into learning more about health and fitness, be mindful. You know, I see a lot of people have issues with torn muscles and aches and pains and accidents and things like that when I see Mars Chiron stuff. And you'll definitely see this, especially as that moon is continuing to go through Capricorns for like about 2 days. The moon in Capricorn is bringing up structure and order and limitations and top-down stuff in regards to bosses and, you know, parenting issues, and where this is actually limiting and making people feel angry. Guys, Pluto's going back into Capricorn pretty soon. Like, it ain't over until it's over. You know, Pluto returning back to Capricorn is the final moments of really kind of showing us what has been happening really since 2008, where there has been a complete takeover of top-down structures, where, you know, companies are essentially running the world right now. Right? They are the ones that are having major influence in what's going on with rules, decision, you know, government. Where we're seeing that there has also been collaboration, especially with government and, you know, big business, tech. I think just the fact that it's been going in and out of Aquarius is showing us like what social media companies have been working, you know, with the government. Where have they been carrying out some of their agendas and some of their decisions and influencing elections or deciding what you can or cannot see, or influencing how you may or may not vote, or whether or not you know where to vote? And then where are we also seeing that Pluto is really also highlighting where the awareness of these things is really important, because it does create some mass awakening. And like, yeah, okay, we have some billionaires out there, you know, trying to either fight for change and for freedom, but I wouldn't bank completely on one person saving the world. That's not really how this works. We're going to see that there is going to be more of an orchestrated control of censorship. If you guys think it's over, it's not over. Later this year, we're going to see Jupiter go into Gemini, and 2 separate times it's going to square Saturn in Pisces. So we will see that there is going to be a return of what you can hear, what you can see, a move to also censor and take down certain apps or certain kind of platforms, because people don't want things being heard or being seen. So it's not over yet. With Mars reactivating this point, it's going to be pretty active, like I said, the 25th through about the 30th. So you want to watch themes pertaining to what is coming up with April. You know, I think about that solar eclipse, which was like a new beginning, but we were in a Mercury retrograde, so we were like, this sucks. Like, this thing is coming up for me on a personal level, and like, what am I going to do about it? And like, do I feel empowered? Am I capable? Is it possible? And there's been a process through the retrograde of that unfolding, where we're figuring out whether or not we can kind of rise to the occasion. But when Mars shows up with the North Node and it reactivates this, we're like, it's going to hurt, and it's going to be difficult, and it's going to take a lot of courage, and we're going to have to do a lot of it independently on our own, or we're going to have to become more self-sufficient, or we're going to have to be willing to endure a few bumps and bruises along the way. But, you know, that's kind of the price of what this is going to be. Be careful with hot, sharp things. Don't be combative. Be mindful of that. I do think that when Mars starts approaching Chiron, which looks like that's going to be happening closer to the 29th, this is more pertaining to Capricorn things because it's 22 degrees. So when we look at degree astrology and we look at 22, this is connected to Capricorn. So we see themes relating to older age differences, history, archaeology, things or people from the past. Late or with delay, later than usual, something that lasts long, durability, with trouble, with problems, depression, suffering, cold winter ice, deep freezes, which is not really connected to Aries. Slow, dragging, doing something with delay, resistant, bad luck, skin diseases, poverty, shortage, things that are sour, dark, rock, stone, cliff, or things made of natural materials. Personally, I feel like this is going to be about some of us kind of being like, okay, this is, you know, challenging, or this is going to take time, or maybe we're starting to really feel the effects more so of like aging. With Mars being in its domicile in this conjunction, it's really kind of saying, I think, that all of us are really having to kind of pull ourselves up by the bootstraps and really kind of, you know, proceed forward. But still, days where you could be more prone to accidents, injuries, skin issues, gashes, burns, things like that. Be very careful, especially if you have personal planets around these degrees. And that is going to be the 23rd degree of the Sabian symbol, which is about the woman having, what is it? A woman in pastel colors carrying a heavy but valuable veiled load. Behind the scenes, it speaks to privacy and unreliability of superficial appearances. The woman in pastel colors with a heavy but valuable load presents contrast between light and gentle appearance of the woman and a heavy burden that she carries. The implication here is the load she carries is an important obligation, and despite the weight of it, she is committed and not willing to give up or share it. On a practical level, this symbol cautions against judging by appearances. It implies that the truth is a matter that may be hidden, or that some important secret is being kept. Watch for this. At its highest, the symbol represents integrity, discreetness, and the willingness to accept responsibility without complaint. Watch for hidden agendas or deception. The accent here is on mystery, and things that are hidden are not what they appear to be. So with that happening at 22 degrees, you know, it can be, is there some hidden move to create conflict and kind of spark issues? Is there some kind of, you know, obviously attack or some kind of breakout or issue with violence that is, you know, a false flag situation? Perhaps, you know, do people know things that are coming that we don't know? Maybe. I think, you know, and I've said this before, this is my moon's at 22 degrees. And what the takeaway for me has always been, just because I know something is coming doesn't necessarily mean that I should say it. So my rule of thumb has always been in sessions that I'm not going to, you know, willingly kind of offer up information unless somebody asks. Because that's my personal rule. Somebody has to ask me for help before I'm going to jump in and kind of help them or guide them in some way. You guys give me that right. You're giving it to me by watching my video. So I'm gonna take that as a green light for you. But that's how I've kind of navigated things. And there are sometimes things that I know that I'm like, this is going to cause a problem if I say something, or this person's not really ready to hear this, or, you know, until they ask me. I mean, I'm a projector, so I have to wait for the invitation. Then I will say something. So I feel like this can also be situations where people are feeling like they're drowning, and people are continually hurting themselves and repeating old patterns, and they're not getting out of their own way. And these things keep happening, and we're kind of inflicting these wounds upon ourselves. And so it may be a time where someone or something can offer us a like a life raft, right, or a boat. They're going to kind of like fish us out of the water, but only if we're willing to ask for help. Only if we're willing to finally acknowledge and admit that, you know, what we've been doing hasn't been working. And so that's kind of my interpretation of that. Take it for what you will. And then finally, on the 8th of June, Mars will enter into Taurus, where things slow down a little bit. Mars it does not perform as well in this particular sign. So we'll talk about that in a future video. But all you need to know is that that's when Mars is moving through a Venusian sign. Things are going to slow down a little bit. We get a little bit comfortable. We can get complacent here as well. And it is going to be full-blown like Gemini season. We're going to see a number of squares between Saturn and Neptune. So there will be some slowdown. There will be some things that may feel delayed. Even though, you know, Jupiter's moving into a new sign, even though we're going to see some Venus Cazimi things and stuff taking place, there's a couple of catches with some of those squares to Saturn. So make the most of this transit. I am so excited. I feel like I have personally waited for this transit of Mars and Aries to plan out the rest of my year, to create a whole new set of goals, to be focusing more on physical fitness. I mean, it's like, because I know these things are actually going to stick a lot more with this transit. So don't beat yourself up if you've been feeling like you've been delayed a little bit on your New Year's resolutions, or you haven't been as, proactive as you could have been. Reflect on what you've been thinking about initiating over this last month, what you figured out after the retrograde and the eclipse season, and then you can kind of start putting that to work. So I'd like to show you guys, just briefly where this is going to be moving for the 12 rising signs. As always, I'm a Western astrologer, so that's what I like to focus on. I use, for the purpose of my readings on my videos on my channel, to make it clean cut and easier to digest, I use the whole sign system. In my one-on-one sessions, and what I like to practice is working with Placidus. So if you're a Placidus user and maybe Mars starts in one house and then finishes in another, you're going to have to listen to more than one rising sign. As a reminder, this is very important for my Aries and my Scorpio risings, so that you might feel a little bit more of a pack and a punch with these transits for you guys, because Mars rules your chart. I'm going to show you the 12 rising signs using the whole sign method and give you a little bit of insight as to where this is going to be going through your chart, what to watch for, and how to navigate. So let's go ahead and start with Aries and Aries rising first. What's up, guys? I'm sure you guys are going to be stoked to have Mars going through your sign. It doesn't matter if you're an Aries sun, moon, or rising, you will feel this energy and you will benefit from this energy. Because it's going to help you express your Aries energy in a way that you would like to. However, Aries rising perspective, Mars moving through the first house and then also meeting with the North Node is very linear, going after what you want to change, what you want to accomplish, what you're trying to achieve, getting what you need. Especially with that tie-in to Scorpio in the 8th house, which is joint resources, sex, passion, change, other people's money. It's like dog with a bone, right? So Mars moving through the first house in this placement is a very strong sense of feeling self-assured, being courageous, taking initiative. And I think you're going to feel much more assertive, direct, and energetic, often leading you to new endeavors. And so I think that this is going to be a strong transit for you. Be mindful that you may struggle a little bit with patience because there is going to be a sense of, I want what I want it right now. So try to get physically active throughout this transit and blow off a little bit of steam, okay? Really great also for fitness and like defining like more muscles. If you're wanting to get lean, if you're wanting to tone, anything like that with Mars going through this sign, it's a wonderful time to do that. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. You guys are going to be doing the Mars and Aries transit. It's going to be going through your 12th house. My Tauruses... so Mars in the 12th house, interesting stuff. I could see this as kind of having like a warrior spirit. But the 12th house obviously is going to be more about what is behind the scenes, what's private. You may feel more passionate than usual, and this could be like more sexual. Definitely some time kind of like behind closed doors with another person can be like an emphasis here. But it can also be about doing some kind of like shamanic work, spiritual healing, dancing, drumming. That stuff can come up with Mars in the 12th house as well. Exploring, traveling, that kind of stuff. But definitely behind the scenes. And you might feel a little bit more passionate about helping those in need. There can be this strong desire to want to serve humanity. And you may also feel like some stuff that's coming up for you is that you're dealing with anger or resentment or something that you've been holding inside and not dealing with. So watch for that. There is going to be opportunities to really focus on some of your spiritual endeavors. You may be feeling like you need to do that alone. The 12th house is about foreign travel. It can also be about higher education. It can also be about sleep, and it has connections to your subconscious. So there can also be opportunities for psychological exploration. I think with like Mars being the ruler also of your 7th house of relationships, it's about going deeper with another person. So it can mean that you're working with a healer, you're working with a therapist, right? Or you're having more in-depth kind of, conversations and kind of like connections with your partners. But it can also be a time where there's just like a lot more opportunity to spend time by yourself and to rest, heal, or recuperate. Good luck, Taurus. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising. You guys will be doing the Mars transit in Aries in your natal 11th house. So this is a fun place to have a Mars transit. I feel like very busy social schedule has probably been going down for you guys with like the retrograde there, the eclipse there, you know, places to go, people to see. And this is also about being more active in a group. Country clubs, social clubs, networks, you know, physical health and fitness classes with other people, you know, working out with friends, that kind of stuff. It can be a time where you're more active in group activities or organizations as well. You may find that there is a tendency throughout this transit to be a little bit more direct and assertive when it comes to social change and reform. And it can indicate a tendency sometimes of this transit to clash over ideas or goals with other people. With Mars being connected to the 6th house, it can mean that you're like trying to have like, you know, meetings and stuff with coworkers, and like you're not seeing eye to eye about how to complete a project or like what your guys' goal or initiative is. And there can be some nitpicking over like who's doing what. There can be some kind of conflicts with friends that can happen. But I do think that with the retrograde being in your 11th house recently, I think it's more about you being like, what are my goals? What am I hoping to achieve? How do I get there? And now you're taking that action and trying to figure out what friends are aligning with where I'm going in my life, and where do I need to be networking or, you know, kind of connecting with other people to help bring some of these goals into fruition. Okay. Good luck, Gemini. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. What's going on, guys? Obviously, you know, for my cardinal signs, all right, so Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, you guys may feel this is a little bit more intense, all right? You're going to feel this a little bit more intensely. What I will say is that the positive is that when I think about the houses that Mars performs the best in, you know, the 1st, the 6th, the 8th, and the 10th. So having Mars go through the 10th house is symbolic kind of like Mars's exaltation, you know, in Capricorn. It can get a lot of work done. So it's wonderful for being busy, being employed, having a lot to do, you know, being very productive. And also I think this is about standing out when it comes to your reputation. So whether you're retired and you're just looking to kind of get more involved in what's going on with like your local community and being a leader, or if you're looking for a new job, or if you're wanting to launch a new business, or there's something entrepreneurial that's going on, there's definitely a sense of being seen and standing out from the crowd, and being very competitive here. Anyway, can't feel more uncomfortable for you because it's 10th house to your sign. It does feel like a Saturn energy. So you're like, yes, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of having to be out there. But this is about you being very ambitious and goal-oriented. And you might notice you're just more direct and assertive when it comes to your career, you know, taking on leadership roles. And you may feel like you're a little bit more impulsive or kind of entrepreneurial when it comes to some of your professional decisions. Now, this is interesting, especially for those of you guys who are like parents, because of Mars's connection to the 5th house. It might be like, okay, I'm feeling like there's more responsibility with my kids, or I'm deciding to become a parent. If not, it can be more about being very passionate about making your side hustle, your hobby, your personal passion project, like, you know, a full-blown career. It can mean if you're a performer, a dancer, an actor, you know, you're like, this is what I want to do. A creative, really putting it out there and owning it and being like, I'm going to make this a professional occupation. Such a good time with like, you know, the eclipses and everything else that's going on. And I keep reminding everybody, like, think about next year when I said all these planets are going to move into Aries over that critical degree. As Saturn and Neptune go into your 10th house next year, you're going to redefine your status. And it can mean that you're like, that's it, I'm retiring. It can mean I've always been seen as an employee, now I'm a CEO, or I've always been single and now I'm married. Something big is going to be kind of showing up. And it's going to be about being a lot more kind of independent when it comes to the direction of your status or reputation. So I do see this being an incredibly powerful time when it comes to these topics. Good luck, Cancer. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You'll be doing the Mars and Aries transit in your natal 9th house in a fellow sister fire sign. So you will be receiving some trines from Mars throughout this transit to your sun, moon, or rising, which is helpful. It's beneficial. It helps you become, I think, more confident. It helps you with creativity, helps you with play, helps you with romance, because these are all the archetypes that we kind of think about when we think of Leo. So Mars going through the 9th house for you here. This is a placement that's going to be about adventure, exploring new ideas, learning about new culture, entertaining the idea of, visiting or moving to new places, exploring also your family lineage or history, where you come from. New teachers can show up here. New opportunities to travel or go to school can show up here as well. I do think that this is also about being a little bit impulsive or impatient when it comes to travel, philosophical, or academic, things. Mars has connections to your 9th house. Your 9th house and your 4th house. I could see like some people that are like, I'm visiting this other city or this foreign place and seeing if I like it before I move. I could see other people who are like, oh, I'm having to move away because I got accepted to a graduate program, or, my kid is going to school, so now they're relocating. That could happen here because it can be family. This can also be about connecting with teachers from the past or going back and completing a program. Anything like that can be kind of coming up. The 9th house is about law, legality, and also teaching or publishing. So there can be opportunities for you to be doing work in that kind of realm as well. But for the most part, the 9th house is a positive house. I see all this growth going on in your career. I wonder if this is more about importing, exporting, marketing. Are you having to go and meet with somebody to help you with branding or promoting your business? Are you having to sign legal documents? Is there legal stuff going on pertaining to this? Those kinds of things can be kind of happening for you, but it's definitely a little bit of an easier energy because it's going to be trining your sun, moon, or rising. Good luck, Leo. We've got Virgo and Virgo rising. You'll be experiencing the Mars transit in Aries in your natal 8th house. So pros is Mars likes the 8th house, right? Because of its natural kind of connection to Scorpio. But Aries is the self, okay? And the 8th house is shadow. So there's something changing, transforming, ending, purging, new beginnings, psychological breakthroughs, sexual healing, trauma healing, stuff that's all kind of going on in the shadows in your 8th. Being brave pays off here. Being brave pays off. Going after what you want pays off. That can mean in a sense of being like, I really want to connect with this person, or I really want to raise money, or I really want to pay off my debt, or I really want to, go through a really significant change. That is all encouraged here, but you have to be willing to face some of the unknown. Now, Mars has connections to your 3rd house, so it can be more about talking about or discussing or learning more about yourself. Maybe you're reading books on self-help. Maybe you're going to therapy. Maybe you're making money, somehow online, or you're doing something relating to investment, occult studies, research. I've seen a lot of Virgo and Virgo risings that are being more vocal about what their needs are. They're like, hey, I need more sex, or I need more affection, or, I need you to pay me back, or I need a better bonus, or I need better benefits. Speaking up and really working with that energy of the 3rd house can be a big theme, and learning to kind of vocalize, also what you're struggling with or what you're afraid of. The retrograde's been really kind of showing you this, and the 8th house can be about death, ends, endings, or changes of some kind. So you might be realizing, I have to stop thinking this way, or I have to stop talking this way, or I have to finally deal with this issue, and I can't be avoiding it any longer. So for some of you guys, it's about emotional, psychological change. For others, it's financial change or things pertaining to stability and security in relationships. The key here is, if you are owed something, whether this is a tax refund or an inheritance, or if somebody hasn't paid an invoice or whatever, this is about being like, I need that taken care of. Because it's about receiving more with the North Node being in this house, okay? Hopefully that's helpful for you guys. Hopefully you have a new way of looking at endings as well. You're kind of learning how to kind of communicate and work through that and see this as positive shifts because something new is kind of coming in. I don't know. Let me know. How are you guys doing with this transit? We've got Libra and Libra rising. How are you guys doing? So basically what's going to be happening here is you're going to have Mars going through your 7th house. So the same thing I would say to Cancer and also Capricorn. This can feel a little bit more uncomfortable for you, Libra, because it is opposing you by sign. Just word to the wise, the 18th, 19th, 20th, watch what's going on as the moon is kind of coming through your South Node in the 1st house, where there can be some emotional kind of clearing or some kind of breakdown or some kind of change. which will definitely spark up some of this Mars transit. And it's going to be about how you're emotionally relating to another person. But Mars will be moving through Aries in the 7th house. So a couple ways I could look at this. One is you're attracting more Mars-related people into your life. If you're a single Libra or Libra rising, this can be a time where there is more action and motivation revolving around relationships and partnerships. Like somebody can show up into your life, right? You can meet somebody who's just very direct, very forthcoming, a little aggressive in their, kind of pursuing style. But the 7th house is also your marketplace. So you're creating something that people want. So if you have a business or if you have services, it's like, hey, this is what I'm offering. This is what's, on sale this month. Here's the new products that we have. This is what I'm kind of putting out there. It's self-promotion. So it can be good in that sense. Also, if you're looking for a manager, a trainer, if you're looking for some kind of partner of some sort, this is a really good time to bring somebody in here as well. Partnered relationships, you just might notice that there is just more action revolving around the partner. They may be a little bit more impatient. They can definitely be a little bit more physically inclined at this time as well, or a little bit more like passionate towards you in a physical or romantic way. Mars rules your 2nd house of money, resources, personal possessions. So people want what you have, and that can be good in a sense of, well, it can help make money, right? Mars rules money in your chart. So it can be people being like, name your price, I want to work with you, or I'll buy it. So if you work in a sense of selling things or auctioning things, you might have more people who are competitive for what you have to offer. But this can also be people who are like, give me my money back, or people who are confrontational and combative about wanting something that you possess or wanting to kind of take something from you. Okay. I would say with this transit, the positive is that there's going to be a lot of action in relationships, and you may find that very direct, assertive people are coming into your life, and that you may meet somebody or become drawn to somebody who is very independent and energetic, and it can bring up where people are pushing their agendas or their needs too much. And it likely in some committed relationships will manifest as, arguments and conflicts, but the quick ability to resolve them. So, all Libra risings, look at what's been happening with the eclipses and the retrograde recently. Where has there been miscommunications, challenges, or issues? Have you been talking about that with your partner? Are they actually being proactive and making changes, or are you still seeing that they're being like argumentative jerks that are not getting it? And, like I said, Mars will be on steroids. So you can see that there can be a tendency of that just really kind of popping off. Get active with your partner, right? That's the best thing you can do. Like, go out and do things, work out together, go for walks, like go and invest time or money or energy in physical activities, which can help blow off some steam. Good luck, Libra. Scorpio and Scorpio risings. What's up, guys? You're going to be doing this Mars transit in Aries in your natal 6th house. I like this for you guys. I do. I feel like it's obviously important for, you and Aries because you're ruled by Mars. So you get Mars and Pluto, and they will sextile each other in the beginning. So you're really adamant about getting active, getting organized, and making some big changes when it comes to your home, your family, or your emotions. But the 6th house is another place where Mars does very well, actually. It likes to serve. It likes to have, like a to-do list or an agenda. It likes to work. So it's a good placement for this. I think for you guys, this is going to be about just noticing you have a very strong work ethic, a desire to serve other people in a very hands-on way. You may feel more active and energetic when it comes to work, health, or fitness, or just routine. So because Mars is your body, you're like, oh, I'm working out. I've got a schedule consistently. It can mean that you're really adamant about finding a job, or that you're wanting to organize, get things done at work. You're wanting to, clean. You want to get things kind of checked off your to-do list. There are things that you want to get done. The other thing that I would just say to be mindful of is like a solar eclipse here, a retrograde here. A lot of Scorpio and Scorpio risings have been either having issues with consistency at work, or kind of return of bad habits, or there's been some health stuff that's come up. So if you have had some health issues, or maybe you were down sick for a week or something, now Mars coming into this house is like, okay, now I'm getting back into my routine. Now I am going to the gym again, or my energy is coming back, or now I am making conscious changes or making cuts in my habits or my health. Great time to be like, I'm going to the gym, or I'm quitting smoking, or I'm just going to be more active on a regular basis. Also a great time to be looking for work. The one thing that you want to keep in the back of your mind, right, is that the first house is the body and the sixth house is health. So any which way you slice it, it's going to be about your health and your habits. And you want to watch when Mars is conjuncting the North Node in Chiron, because sometimes the North Node is where we do something too much. Are you running too much to the point where you're screwing your knees up? Are you smoking too much to the point where you're having all kinds of inflammation and issues and you're getting sick? Are you pushing yourself too much at work and overworking and creating exhaustion or creating some health issues? There can be a sense of too much with these transits, right? So be mindful of that, Scorpio. Sending you lots of good health blessings through this transit. We've got Sag and Sag rising. You guys are going to have a ball with this transit. You'll be experiencing Mars going through the sign of Aries in your natal 5th house. So for my Saggies, what is the 5th house? Playtime, creativity, right? Bars, casinos, children, creativity, having fun, sporting events, holidays or vacations. So this is going to be fun because this is about really feeling a strong drive to express yourself creatively, and a love of competition. So I think that this can be sports, this can be games. You might be going to children's sporting events. You might be going to professional sporting events. You might just be feeling like just, having hobbies that are more active. This is also going to be about a strong romantic nature that's kind of coming about with Mars going through the 5th house. It wants to fall in love and go on dates and be passionate and romantic, and it wants things to move very quickly. They can burn out overly quickly too. So Mars going through this house can be about quick flings. There can be, chance connections and kind of one-off situations. But it's also about falling in love. And so it's interesting that this is happening simultaneously as we're getting ready to see the Sun and Jupiter and Venus go into your 7th house, where you may meet somebody. So I like to see the 5th and the 7th house kind of activated. If you're in a committed relationship, it can be more about how are we doing more together? Are we traveling together? Are we having fun? Are we making time for pleasure? That kind of stuff can be kind of coming up for you. Obviously, Mars rules the 12th house of the subconscious. So there can also be these really strong subconscious impulses or desires or drive. Scorpio is about sex. So it can mean that you're, just feeling a little bit more passionate when it comes to physical connection. It can mean also that there are some subconscious drives coming out to create, right? To play. It might mean that hobbies relating to film, photography, spirituality, like research, other things can be kind of coming up through your 5th house that you enjoy that brings pleasure. But I really recommend going to some sporting events here, or going to some theaters or some shows or some concerts. And this is also about having fun on your own, because Aries is what you do independently. So it's about being like, I'm creating time to do the things that I love to do. And whether it's playing an instrument or deciding that you want to take up a new hobby, it doesn't matter. Do those things and you're definitely going to enjoy it a little bit more. Good luck, my Sag and Sag risings. All right, so we've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. What's up, Cap? You'll be doing the Mars transit in Aries in your 4th house. All right, so same spiel with all the other cardinal signs. Yes, it can feel a little uncomfortable, especially Mars going through the 4th house. That can feel a little disruptive. So we'll talk pros and cons, but the Mars in the 4th house transit, basically it's a time where you're going to have, I think, a stronger desire for independence. You may notice that, you want independence from your roommates, from your partner, from, your family, that you want your own space, you want your own room, you want your own apartment, or you want to be left alone. That can happen. It can also be a time where you're initiating change and you're pushing for new beginnings when it comes to home and family or new traditions. You can also be very protective of family or your personal space at this time. Mars is a disruptor naturally, right? He can kind of ruffle some feathers. So when Mars goes into the 4th house, it can mean that you're like, okay, I just feel really like I need to get out of my space. I need change, and maybe you can't move. It may mean that you're spending time out of your house. It may mean that you decide one afternoon you're going to rearrange all of your furniture. Certainly moving things, making changes, or taking action at home is helpful. When I have Mars in the fourth house transits, I like to have a to-do list where I'm like, okay, over the next 5 weeks, these are the things that I need to get done. Otherwise, there can be some conflicts, some tension, some combativeness, with family or on the home front. The North Node is there, so you may feel like even more than usual, there's more work or things that you're needing to do at home. And you might be kind of agitated and you're like, why is it on me? Why am I doing the dishes? Why am I the person who has to take out the trash? Like, why am I taking care of everyone? Or that you're yearning for your own space and to have some sense of like independence outside of your, current living situation. Mars rules your 11th house of friends and your goals. So it might mean also that you're like, I want to buy a new place. I want to renovate something. I want to put up wallpaper. So you might be feeling a little bit more active in some of this stuff, which I think is wonderful for you. It's going to give you the opportunity to kind of be very hands-on with some of this stuff. I will also tell you, like, watch for some tiffs that can happen with roommates. Watch for some tiffs that can happen with family. Really good time to be looking at your home and like security systems, because sometimes Mars can represent attackers. Not to scare you, but like I can think on 2 or 3 occasions that I have had situations where I was having Mars transits in the 4th house. Granted, Pluto was there too, or Saturn, and I was seeing stuff happen. One Mars transit, I was living in Vegas. Neighbors were saying that they saw somebody like on a video that was like running along the side of our house. I had my French bulldog in the backyard. Some guy jumped the fence and he's running through the fence and then takes off and then like ran off. So we don't know if he was just jumping the fence from another neighboring house or if he was kind of going through people's yards, but that happened during a Mars transit. And another situation in LA where I had a Mars transit in my 4th house. Granted, Saturn and Pluto was there, but I heard a bunch of ruckus, and I was living at the time in East LA, and like the houses were like up on a hill, if you guys are familiar with that area. And so it was kind of like near like Echo Park, and the house was going uphill. So my neighbor off of the patio was at a lower elevation. And I just so happened, I heard this ruckus and I was like, I don't have a good feeling about this. And I knew the Mars transits were happening. I turned all the lights off and I looked just with like the skyline of what I could see with the neighboring areas. And I see a guy that's literally scaling a wall, and he's like got a pulley system and he's got a ski mask on, and he's like, he just broken into somebody's house. And I'm like sitting there with the blinds kind of pulled, and I'm like watching this like burglar, scale down a house after coming out of a window. And I was like, oh my God, it's time to move. Anyway, the point is like, I have personally experienced these transits. So the best thing you could do is focus on security of the home. If you need to make an update, if you need to make sure that windows and doors are locked, please do. I don't think you have anything to worry about, but with Mars conjunct the North Node, it could also mean that there's more hostility in the neighborhood, that you're seeing angry drivers, whatever. So just like, don't mess around when it comes to your home. You can offset this energy by burning a candle at home. You can use hot herbs or other things that can kind of clear that space or clear the air, or create a to-do list. And that's the best way to kind of like diffuse that energy. Thank you for coming to my Mars in the 4th TED Talk. Good luck, and let me know what you guys end up kind of doing with that transit. All right, so we have Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You guys are going to be doing the Mars North Node transit in Aries in your 3rd house. It'll be here for several weeks, so we're looking at the transit in general. This is going to be a time where I think you're just more direct with your communication. You're more, willing to initiate conversations, contracts, phone calls, emails. I think it's going to be a time also where you may notice that there's a tendency to be a little bit more quick to argue or debate, but also to forgive and move on. Like there can be a sense of like talking through something and not agreeing, but being like, whatever, let's move forward. Mars here can also indicate that you are really focused on learning and exploring new ideas, but you may notice you have a shorter attention span. So it's like if you are, taking courses or classes, or if you are, reading on a new subject or a book, we want quick lessons. Like several hour-long things aren't going to fly. You're going to want to do things in smaller kind of spurts of like reading or learning, shorter books or shorter chapters. Great time if you're wanting to also learn something new that can be improving your career, because Mars is connected to your 10th house. Now, I think this is going to be like meetings with bosses, paperwork, contracts, needing to negotiate things can happen through the 3rd house as well. Those of you guys who are in media, if you're in involved in education, writing, travel, vehicles. This is going to be a time where you're really going to benefit because it's going to be kind of acting, I think, very positively in the third house. You may notice there's a tendency to want to rush through things. And I would say, like, don't take your time and talk everything through. Try not to like rush through negotiations or contracts. And also, like, watch your speeding, because Mars with the North Node in the third house, you may be driving faster than usual. You may notice that you're kind of racing around, you're kind of impatient trying to get places, or you're impatient during meetings and you're trying to kind of speed things up and move through it. Really work with the beginning transit of Mars sextile Pluto in your sign, because I think this is about you're going through a personal change and it's impacting the way that you communicate. And it can mean that you're like, I need to start speaking up for myself, you know, and telling people what is and is not working for me, and being more assertive and more direct, and like learning how to communicate in a way that also makes you feel more confident. So rather than feeling like stressed out with some of the changes, you know, you're going to be telling people like, don't call me, I'll call you, you know, or, you know, I'll get back to you when I can. Or if you're going through something, it's communicating and expressing and explaining to people, you know, like where you're at, where you're coming from. So your needs are being met. You may notice there can be some challenges with, you know, communication with neighbors or like with siblings or relatives. You may feel a little impatient dealing with some of these people during this particular transit. But there's also a side of you that's like becoming much more of a leader. You're becoming much more independent or kind of direct, and directing other people and inspiring other people, because Aries is like, I don't know about you, but this is what I'm doing. And that may be how you're opting and kind of choosing to lead throughout this transit. But yeah, watch the short attention span. Slow down in the driving. Make sure you stop at all your stoplights and stuff here. All right, and then we have Pisces and Pisces rising. So you guys are going to be doing Mars transiting the sign of Aries. It's going to go through your second house, where it can burn a hole in your pocket. So be mindful of your pocketbook, your wallet, your credit cards, all of that stuff. Second house is what I possess, what I own, what I collect. So you might notice that you're spending more, you're collecting more, you're eating more. There is a sense of wanting to accumulate more, especially with the North Node being there. Now, Mars, it's going through the second house, is a strong drive to accumulate. You may be very competitive in business or financial matters and have a great deal of energy or ambition when it comes to earning money. So that's the good thing. Especially with the North Node being here, there's a lot of like, I want to make my own way. There's this focus on being self-made. And so it can be very entrepreneurial with the North Node, where suddenly you're like, okay, I'm going to start putting some of my talent to work, and a lot of drive to be able to kind of bring in resources. This is also about being, like I said, impulsive spenders. So financial management is key here. I think about how, you know, Mars and the North Node in conjunction are saying for some of you guys, you know, you're impulsively spending on things like travel, education, marketing. You know, some of you guys might be like, I really want to get my degree. I'm going back. I'm going to pay for it. I really want to go to, you know, this country, and I don't want to have to wait several months, and I've got, you know, a week off, you know, at the end of the month. So I'm going to spend a little bit more money, you know, booking the airfare now, but it is what it is. Things like that are going to start coming up. This is also about your beliefs about money. This is about your beliefs about wealth and exchange and what you put out there and what you get in return. Some of you guys may have to be spending money for law or legalities. So legal matters can come up. Maybe you're spending money when it comes to also something relating to like promotion, or if you're doing like a campaign for a business, that can be coming up here with the Mars North Node transit. You may feel very drawn to be going places that may be foreign as well. So it might be like, oh, I really want to go to another country, or I really, you know, would just like to get on a trip where I can go on a plane and go somewhere, because the ninth house can be about that. For the most part, I think that this is going to be positive for you guys. And you can see when Mars is kind of touching with the North Node and Chiron, that's like, you know, are you pushing yourself too far? You know, are you spending money in a way that's actually not beneficial for you? You know, is there a need to reevaluate your resources and like what you realistically can spend and cannot spend? And is spending too much having an impact on you physically or, you know, financially, possibly with Chiron going through here? But I think for the most part, it's going to be positive. And this is a lot about, you know, changes in terms of your values and like what you're willing to spend money on. And for some of you guys, you might realize, I want experiences, I don't want things. So it may change your perception of being like, well, I'm not going to be doing the shopping spree, you know, online, or I'm not going to be spending a lot of money going out, or I'm not going to be, you know, whatever. So you can justify, you know, planning trips, going places, you know, getting certifications or training and finding ways to be able to afford it. And it's that transformation of how you're looking at your resources and what you believe when it comes to money. So good luck, my Pisces. Well, I hope that's helpful for you guys. It's going to be a super productive transit. I'd love to hear what you guys think, especially if you have like Mars in Aries or Mars in the first house, Mars conjunct the North Node. Do you have that burning impulse, that feeling that's like, I got to do this thing and I got to do it now? I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know. I always appreciate your likes, your comments, and your shares. Giving me a thumbs up or leaving me a comment on this video is so helpful because it helps the algorithm. It helps other people see my videos. It's going to put it out into YouTube and help me reach my goal of 50,000 subscribers this year. So we're now coming up into the month of May, so you guys can help make it possible for me to achieve that goal. Sharing is caring. Don't forget to subscribe. I will be back here on Thursday. We're going to talk all things about Jupiter going into Gemini. We're going to do a preview video of that and see what it looks like. So you don't want to miss that video. Otherwise, enjoy this Mars transit. Get out there and do something. Be active today. And I will catch you guys back here next time. Take care.